I was woken up from my deep sleep due to hear my golden retriever Goldilocks barking in an alarming way. I forced my groggy body to move, but the best that I could do was roll over to wrap my arms around my wife's body, realizing that she wasn't even home because she was on a college trip with her students for a conference. It managed to wake me up a little bit more. Hearing Goldilocks bark the way she was, I had to get out of bed to see what could be going on. Could it be a raccoon or a cat that she could be barking at? She doesn't really get that way if it is though. That being said, Goldilocks is more of an indoor dog since she's a very timid, gentle dog that is 4 years old. Our house is on the edge of the city neighborhood, packed with people that get usually quiet when the sun goes down, thankfully. The only special thing about my house is that the backyard is connected to the park. That is more of a mountain nature reservoir where there are many hiking trails that you can choose from. At this point, I'm slowly walking to the front door where Goldilocks is, but the moment I hear the front door being rattled and shook, I fully awaken, immediately and run to the front door. "What is it, Goldilocks?" I say as I rub her forehead to calm her down. Turn the last corner and I was more confused. I saw my son, Tommy, trying to open the door to go outside. Tommy is 4 years old as well, but he knows that he is supposed to only go outside with me or his mom. "Tommy!" I say in a confused voice. I just stared at my son as he was frantically trying to open the door, but it was as if the kid had never opened a door before in his life. His hand kept slipping, pulling on the doorknob, completely ignoring my entire presence right behind him. I gently put my hand on his shoulder, fearing that he was sleepwalking. I don't want to startle him. "Tommy! Tommy! Wake up, mijo!" I turn him around and he suddenly woke up. "Dad?" he says in a sleepy tone. He had zero idea on where he was, so I told him that he was just at the front door, and I will carry him to bed. I carry him to my room to sleep, just in case he sleepwalks again. By the time I get there, he was already fast asleep. I hear Goldilocks behind me, and I shut the door, so the three of us are in the same room. I hope that if Tommy sleepwalks again, Goldilocks would be there to bark me awake again. Bang, bang, bang! I wake up feeling my heart bumping out of my chest as I hear something kicking at the front door. I look over to Tommy, but he was nowhere on my bed. My room doors open and Goldilocks wakes up as confused as I was. I rush to the front door and this time Tommy is forcing the door open any means necessary. He is kicking the door, clawing nails against it, the frame, and pulling at the doorknob. "Tommy, what are you doing?" I say with a hint of fear in my voice. I need to let the Tommy was blabbering his words that I couldn't even understand. "Wants me to let it inside our house." Tired of hearing my son's nonsense, I turn him around and look at him in the eyes. I gasp and fall to the floor. Tommy's eyes are blinking rapidly, like a strobe light that his eyes are looking up as high as they possibly could, and I couldn't even see the brown of his eyes. I snap out of the frightening episode that I was in and pick up Tommy, and I tried to calm him down. He finally stopped his panic, mumbling, and he began to cry in my arms. I finally managed my heart to stop beating so hard, and I carried him back to my room. I summed this all up to his mother not being home and possibly having a nightmare or two. I lay Tommy in the bed, but this time I don't fall back asleep. I stepped out of the room and I checked the front door. I didn't know what I was expecting to see. Probably me just being paranoid. I make sure to check that every door is locked. Goldilocks is following right behind me as I make my way to the back sliding door. I find that it was opened. The curtain was waving slightly in the wind. I stood in my tracks. Goldilocks stood in front of me. She began to growl and snarl her teeth. I picked up a nearby fireplace poker and walked towards the door. I gripped on the fire poker so tightly that I bet my knuckles were white at this point. As I stepped closer to the door, I held the fire poker above my head. I turned the backyard light on and I pulled away the curtain, but there was nothing there. It was like clockwork because Goldilocks stopped snarling at the same exact time once she saw it was clear. The breeze began to pick up some more and I slammed the sliding door, making sure that the door was locked this time. I swore that I locked it, but with me being too busy making both Tommy and Goldilocks a chicken meal, I could have forgotten to lock the door. I was now sitting on the chair that my wife uses to put her makeup just to stay awake. I looked at the time. By now, It was 2:02 by now, and I had at least 4 more hours until the sun came up. I don't know why, just having the sun shining in the bright sky, it made me feel hopeful that this would all go back to normal. I debated on whether to call my wife or not about this late in the evening. I decided that would just be a conversation that should be had until the morning. Goldilocks was walking in and out of the room like she usually does in the morning, and that means that she was looking for food. I look up at Tommy, who is sound asleep, and I get up to reheat some chicken for Goldilocks. I leave the plate of dog food in the kitchen and head back to my room, and I see that Tommy is sitting up in the bed. He is staring at me in the way no 4-year-old should ever be looking at you. I'm frozen at my door, and before I could say a word, Tommy says, The Nightwalkers have printed the presents. The Nightwalkers has printed its presents here, and it's stalking us. It craves blood. It craves blood it lusts for. What? I say as I feel my strength from my legs leave. I have to use the door to hold me up. Tommy falls back into the bed and falls asleep as if nothing happened. As soon as he does, I hear behind me Goldilocks scream a bloody cry and instantly is silent. Tommy wakes up shaking in fear after hearing Goldilocks. I run to the kitchen. I find Goldilocks laying on the floor in a pool of blood. Before this, I've never heard a dog gurgle to death on its own blood. I fall to my knees as I grab a nearby towel. I try to find where the wound is coming from. I pull her on my lap and roll her over. I find that there was blood coming out, and I see giant slashes that reach from her lower neck down to her hip. I'm crying like a baby, looking all around to see how this could have happened to her. But the only blood I see is from the pool I'm in. Tommy comes up to me and says, Dad, why is the back door open? Opened? I crowd as I hush Tommy out of the kitchen. I hope that Tommy didn't see a thing, but I can't tell for sure. I tell him to go back to my room as I lock the sliding door and check the entire house. I call the cops. It takes the cops 10 minutes to knock on my door. It was the longest 10 minutes waiting for them. My head was sticking out of the window, waiting to see those flashes of blue and red lights. I let them in immediately, and I checked the house as well, but find nothing. The best they could do is call for their canine unit to properly handle Goldilocks. They have a few questions for me. We have no idea on how the back door was opened after I made sure to lock it. After they left, I cleaned up everything. It was the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever done. When that was done, I showered to wash off my dog's blood from my hands and legs. I just watched the blood run down the drain. I couldn't handle it anymore. I got out of the shower and made myself a drink, and I made sure my bedroom was locked before I crawled into bed. It was 4 o'clock by the time I managed to actually fall asleep. It's 8:30 now, and I'm about to call my wife to tell her everything that had happened. I don't know how I'm gonna explain this to her. I really miss my Goldilocks, but I'm more concerned about that Tommy said before Goldilocks' unfaithful death. What was a night walker? And if it's stalking my house, what can I do? My wife is coming home tonight, and I'm really deciding on staying here or staying at a hotel or something. It might be paranoid, but is it something I should look into? Was it just a mountain lion that found its way in? But then explain the back door opening twice when I clearly locked it. Only time will tell. I will keep this post updated if anything happens. Best wishes.